In case you haven't heard the news, Swifties everywhere are crying over Taylor Swift's engagement. And if you're like me and you're not a Swiftie, you might look at that and be like, oh my gosh, that is really crazy. Except it's not, because it's human psychology at work. And what makes it so fascinating is that this is the exact same psychology that's at play when your listeners feel like they know you, even if you've never met. And the stronger that bond is, the more loyal your listeners are going to be. And that's the kind of loyalty that gets listeners binging your podcast, trusting your recommendations, and eventually buying from you. So in this episode, I'm going to break down how this phenomenon works and how you can use the same effect to grow a podcast that people binge and buy from. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your business binge-worthy. So when you talk about listener loyalty, most podcasters are going to discount that in favor of podcast growth and podcast monetization. Like, oh, listener loyalty, that's not what I need. I don't need loyalty from listeners. I need more listeners. I need a bigger audience. I need a bigger audience so I can make money from my podcast. But hold your horses, because there are two things that you need to grow a podcast. The first is to attract new listeners every single day to your show. The second is to keep them. Because if you don't have loyal listeners, then guess what? You're going to have high churn for your podcast. You're going to be out there attracting new listeners that don't stick around. And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to grow your show. So listener loyalty is literally like plugging the holes in a leaky bucket, where as you now add new listeners into that bucket, those listeners stay so that you can actually grow your audience. Okay, so that is the role that listener loyalty plays when it comes to building your podcast. Now, a lot of people think that listener loyalty comes from having really good content or having really great talent. In the industry, we talk about talent for a show. It's simply the host, right? A host who's likable, a host who has a big personality, a host who maybe is a little irreverent or funny, or maybe they're really smart, or maybe they're known for delivering really insane value in every single episode. But I'm here to tell you right now that listener loyalty comes from absolutely none of that. Listener loyalty comes from one thing, and one thing alone. It comes from connection. The more listeners feel connected to you, the more loyal they will be to you. But connection is such a vague and fluffy term. It has no inherent meaning on its own. I mean, how do you build connection? How do you know when you have connection? What is connection specifically? And it's kind of weird, right? Because in most cases, your listeners have never even met you. They don't actually know you. But we've all had this experience of feeling really connected to a podcast host that we know and that we look up to, where it feels like you know them, even when for all intents and purposes, you don't. And so as a podcast host, knowing how to elicit that feeling from your listeners is the key to creating a binge-worthy top show. And don't worry, I'm going to break down exactly how you can do that inside of your podcast. But first, I want you to see how this effect actually plays out in real life. So whether you are a fan of Taylor Swift or not, she is a poster child for how this works. And even if you're not a fan of hers, or even if you've never listened to a single one of her songs, you are going to recognize the patterns at play here, because chances are you've seen this happening with other celebrities too, with political figures, with other people who are in the public eye, and yes, even with podcast hosts. So let me set the scene for you. Taylor Swift just announced her engagement. Swifties around the world are literally going crazy. And if you are not a Swiftie, which I am not, and don't come at me for saying that, but if you are not a Swiftie, you literally might look at that and you might be like, that is wild. Like, I don't understand it. So if that is you and you fall into that camp, then I want you to pick someone that you do admire, someone who is in the public eye, and someone that you do feel like a deep connection with, even though you've never met this person, someone that you really, really like. Maybe it's a musician, maybe it's an artist, maybe it's a political figure. I don't care who it is. Pick someone that you can kind of insert into this example, because the same psychological phenomenon is at play. Okay, so Taylor Swift is our example here. She just got engaged. Literally, Swifties around the world have already scoured the internet to find and buy the Ralph Lauren dress that she's wearing in her engagement pics, to the point where it is completely sold out. Like, you cannot buy it. You cannot buy it in a store. You cannot buy it online. It is gone. You are seeing all kinds of commentary happening around her ring. I mean, just Google Taylor Swift engagement and you don't even have to type in ring, and like literally articles are going to pop up. And my prediction is it's just a matter of time before we start seeing similar styles or even replicas of her exact ring hit the market. You are probably also going to start seeing a wave of proposal trends that are inspired by her proposal story. And then, of course, you know, she's going to have to write a song about it, which is going to reinforce these trends that much more. The bigger question in my mind here, looking at this through a lens of psychology, is why does this happen? Why do people absolutely go bananas for someone that they have never met in real life, but they're acting like, oh my gosh, my best friend just got engaged, or oh my gosh, it's like my sister just got engaged. And it's crazy because we see this play out all the time, even when it makes no sense. Like when said person in the public eye does something really questionable, and their fans and their supporters are so fiercely loyal that they rush to their defense. And again, it all comes down to psychology. And when you understand this as a podcast host, you can leverage this to naturally build more loyalty and deeper connections with your own followers and specifically with your podcast audience. But notice here that I didn't say exploit. And I want to be very, very clear. This is not about doing things to psychologically manipulate people into being your super fans. This is not what I'm talking about. This is simply about understanding how human psychology naturally works so that you can positively reinforce the behavior that you ultimately want to see. It is no different than parenting. If you're a parent, then you and I both know, is there a way to manipulate your children? Yes. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. But is there also a way to encourage the behavior that you want to see from them? Yes. Is it manipulative to do so? No, not when your intentions are good. So if you are raising kids and you are working to help build their character and just raise good humans, and ultimately your intent is to reinforce positive behavior that serves their greater good, then it's healthy and even encouraged. It's when it serves your greater good that it's when it becomes problematic, right? Forcing your kid to get A's or pushing your kid to get A's on a test because it makes you look good, that's problematic behavior. But encouraging them to give it their best and to keep trying and to keep going and to never settle for, mediocre, well, that is more healthy. That is something that helps to build character. And I know that you're a well-intentioned person because you listen to this show. If you are someone who is looking for shortcuts and exploitative tactics. Exploitative, is that a word? I think it is. It's exploitative. We're going to roll with it. Exploitative tactics to grow your podcast audience. This is not the show for you. So keep this in mind as I break down how to build this kind of loyalty with your listeners, because when your intention is to show up and serve them and to help them solve a real problem that they have, to help them make their lives better in some way, then understanding how this works is ultimately going to help you transform your show from just another podcast with just another host talking about just another topic to becoming the trusted voice on that topic in their life. So the technical psychological term for this whole phenomenon that we're describing here is called a parasocial relationship. And maybe you've even heard TikTokers mentioning this when talking lately about Taylor's engagement, because some of them are literally saying, like, at the risk of sounding parasocial, la, 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 I'm so excited for Taylor. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, so the point here is you can be fully aware of this phenomenon and still do it. So all that a parasocial relationship is that it is a one-sided relationship where the audience member feels like they actually know the host or the celebrity. Now, this emotional bond can be formed with literally anyone. Public figures, celebrities, influencers, politicians, podcast hosts. The common denominator is that the individual on the other side of that quote-unquote relationship is investing emotional energy and interest and time while the media persona remains completely unaware of the other person's existence at the individual level. Like Taylor knows, obviously, that she has fans, but she doesn't know each one of her fans individually. However, each one of her fans feel like they actually know Taylor, which is why they're losing her minds over her getting engaged. It sounds weird, I know, but this is actually very normal human behavior, and it's very, very common because it fills some important human needs, like the shared sense of belonging or feeling seen, and creating the kind of relational bonds that are very important to our survival as a human species. And nowhere is there a more fertile breeding ground for these parasocial relationships to form than in podcasting. Think about it. You are literally in someone's ears, the 6 inches between their head. I mean, you have become a regular fixture in their daily life in one of the most intimate ways possible. So it is very natural that a quasi-relationship would form between a listener and the host of the show or shows that they listen to. And this is why being a podcast host is so powerful. And like any other position of power, it comes with great responsibility and a deep sense of duty for your listeners. And so Taylor Swift is a great example of this because her actions, whatever she does out there in the public world, are literally eliciting an emotional reaction from fans who don't know her personally, but who feel like they do. And so, yes, of course, she has millions of fans, but at the end of the day, it's not the number of fans that make people care. I mean, most of us don't follow someone just because a million other people are doing it. That's a different psychological phenomenon called peer pressure, and hopefully most of us have outgrown that by now. This is about depth of connection. We're talking about depth here. And there is no one better than Taylor who understands this. She knows this, and so she intentionally cultivates that kind of closeness with her fans. This is why her servers crash when seats to her concerts go live and the tickets sell out in seconds. This is why you see these trends like her engagement dress selling out, because of how these parasocial relationships directly influence consumer behavior. So all of this to say, the key takeaway here is this, that to succeed in podcasting, it's not actually about having a bigger audience. You don't need millions of fans. Yes, sure, are there podcast hosts out there who have millions of fans? Of course. But if you have a niche show, then ultimately all you need are a few thousand people who feel about you the same way that Swifties feel about Taylor. Because a few thousand people with deep bonds and a deep sense of connection to you is going to be far more effective for you when it comes to growing your podcast than millions of people that have a surface level attachment. So the bigger question becomes, well, how can we create this effect with our podcasts? How can we as podcast hosts build this kind of loyalty innately in our audience without having to push them to do it, but where we are naturally creating an environment where we're reinforcing the positive behavior and the loyalty that we want to see from our audience? And lucky for you, in the next episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. All that's coming up next to help you make your business binge-worthy.